definitely worth the hype. For me, it's a no. Worth all the hype and so much more. But I realized that people who actually love this book are going to be so mad at me. Woo! I think we're good now. Hello, and welcome to the Looking Glass World. My name is Aradhna Matthews, and today we are doing our part 2 of reviewing books that we found on Bookstagram to see whether they're worth the hype or not. So we're going to kick off today with a genre that I generally stay away from, which is romance with red, white, and royal blue. The New York Times bestseller. I picked this up because, of course, it was all over Bookstagram and because it featured 2 men. I wanted to see that LGBTQ angle in romance, which I've not really delved into before. And I would say that is one of the only things I liked about this book. Basically, the premise is both of these men are politically significant. One is the son of the President of the United States. The other one is an English prince. And they meet and they fall in love, and then this turns into this whole sort of political scandal or whatever. They must choose between true love or their duty to their country. Sorry. This political conflict versus love and romance might have been interesting to explore if it wasn't done in such a rom-com kind of way. I think one of the main things that annoys me about this and romance in general is this lack of self-awareness I keep seeing in grown-ass adults. Okay, they're young, but they're both 20-ish or in their early 20s, old enough to know when you're attracted to someone. Alex, who's the American one, who's all like, I don't like Henry, the English one, he's so horrible, blah, blah, blah. And then only later to realize, oh my gosh, I liked him all along. I used to pull things like that when I was maybe 13 and just starting to go through puberty and very confused and hormones all over the place. But I would say most rational adults, by the time you're like 16, 17, you may not like someone, but you're at least aware when you're attracted to them. I don't think that's confusing for us anymore. So for that to be such a huge part of the 2 characters and their love story, obsessing over the other character, constantly thinking about them, and it's like, where is the political intrigue? God, I realize that people who actually love this book are going to be so mad at me right now, but if you like romance, you might enjoy this. All of this is coming from my somewhat borderline revulsion towards the genre, and this is why, but I'll do a different video on that. Basically, it completely lacks rational adult thinking completely. So you want like a teenage romance, that kind of stuff, you might like this, but not for me. Moving on. This I liked. The Once and Future Witches. It's a big book, yeah, but very, very entertaining. It's a story about these 3 sisters who have magic in their blood, and they end up separated when they're very young. They all go their separate ways until this very strange magical occurrence brings them back together again. And now this entire book is set in a period where the burning of witches at the stake is a very recent reality. So it's just about stopped. And the following reality is taken over where, okay, now witches have all been burnt, but women are still fighting for rights. So you have a lot of the feminist conversation happening here and how women are just pushing for equality. And in the midst of all this, you have these 3 magical sisters who dare to say, what if we take more? What if we stop playing the men's game, which is designed to make us lose, and we unleash the magic potential that we have? Basically, it's got a lot of great elements that make for an exciting read. It's got the thrill of a treasure hunt. It's got the intrigue and suspense of magic. It's got the realism of a social discourse and a feminist narrative, and so much more. So definitely really enjoyed this one. Definitely worth the hype. All right, next up we have The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So The Once and Future Witches is very plot. I think we're good now. So The Once and Future Witches is very plot heavy, whereas This is a very character heavy read, so you're just exploring the life of this one person named Evelyn Hugo. Now, who is Evelyn Hugo? She is an iconic actress of what I think is the 50s in Hollywood. I'm not sure, but that's the vibe that I get from here, somewhere around that period. Basically, when she's 79 years old, she says, you know, she's still very much trending and in the news. Everyone's trying to get an interview with her, a photo shoot with her, and she reaches out to this one publication and says, hey, I'm going to give you an interview about some new thing that she's doing, but I want one of your junior writers, who she asks for by name. And everybody's obviously confused. The senior guys are like, what the hell? But this junior writer, this journalist, she goes, and Evelyn reveals that it's not just any interview she wants to do with this person. She wants to tell the journalist her entire life story. And as you dive into Evelyn's life, you understand what it took for her to get to where she is. She was not born rich, and she had to make a lot of sacrifices, morally great choices, and do a lot of other things to push her way to the top. So you really see what fame and stardom do to an individual and the price that you have to pay for everything that Evelyn has achieved. I don't know why, but when reading this, I thought of Marilyn Monroe. I pictured her as Evelyn Hugo. I don't know, strongly, maybe because she's so iconic even today. The author has based Evelyn Hugo on a bunch of other people, Elizabeth Taylor being one of them. There are a couple of others, but kind of all blended together to become Evelyn Hugo. But what was interesting is when I said this on Instagram, many other people were also like, I thought of Marilyn Monroe as well. So clearly something is standing out to all of us in this link between Evelyn and Marilyn. Overall, interesting, very interesting character-based read. Definitely worth the hype. Now we're gonna end this video with It Ends With Us. Woo! Before we begin, I thought that this would be a romance, and I was going through a bit of a like, what the hell, let's just try it kind of phase. So everyone was just praising this so much, so I was like, all right, I know I don't love romance, but I'm gonna see what this is about. And sure enough, there were all these stereotypical romance things that immediately stood out to me. So first of all, I don't know why, I don't like banter, like romantic banter. It always strikes me as childish. I don't know if I'm the only one, but I just don't enjoy it. It's very teenagey and very juvenile. There's a lot of banter in this. There's public scenes, there's intense highs and lows. Ryle is the best, oh, Ryle is the worst. In one day, she goes from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. It's very bipolar, and this keeps happening. Also, Ryle himself has these inconsistencies where initially he meets her and he's all like, whoa, I don't date people, and then guess what? He's begging to date her. After just like, it's not even like he's known her for a long time and slowly his mind has changed or anything realistic. No, instantly. So she doesn't let him sleep with her, then he's like, I have to sleep with you, keeps begging her, doing all this nonsense. Finally it happens, and she's all like, okay, I guess that's it, because he said he doesn't want to be in a relationship. Okay, so she knows what she's getting into, but this man is all like, no, now I love you, I want to have babies with you, I want to marry you. How is that realistic? Something is wrong with this Ryle, and it's definitely very apparent from the first moment she meets him and he throws this temper tantrum and starts kicking furniture around on a terrace. I mean, in his defense, he thought he was alone, but still. But there is something to this book that surprised me, and that was the angle of domestic abuse. I did not expect that at all when I was reading this, and I was approaching it very cynically, very, oh crap, this is the usual romance nonsense and I have to deal with it. But then this hit me, and in spite of all of that fluff, which is more superficial, you do get a sense of the complexity in an abusive relationship and why a victim may not necessarily be capable of breaking ties immediately. For someone on the outside, it seems very black and white. And it did to me, I'll be honest, before reading this, because I never had any context, thankfully. After reading this story, I realized there's more to it, and it's never the right thing to tell someone who might be in a similar situation to just say, use your head, get out of that relationship. It's obviously abusive, so why are you going back? And it's also not necessarily weakness when you see somebody going back to an abusive relationship. Maybe she used a superficial romance to kind of misdirect and create an even stronger contrast between what you expect will happen versus what really did happen. They come together and they really clash, and I think that was intentional, and it really jolts you out of a typical romance setting. I'm kind of undecided about whether it's worth all the hype, but there's something to it. But that brings us to the end of our Bookstagram reads. We did a lot, and I want to know if you guys have read any of the books from part 1 or part 2, and what did you think? Did you think they were worth the hype? Did you think they weren't all that great? I really want to know your thoughts, and if there's anything you want me to review, let me know in the comments. But that's it for today. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit subscribe. Follow me on Instagram. Check out my website for some fun articles that I post every week if you like a quick read. And I'll see you next time.